Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's JPR, and welcome back to another video. Alright, so the long-awaited final chapter, we think, of Scarlet and Violet has finally been released, the Indigo disc, and boy, do I have some thoughts about it, so let's just get straight to it. Also, for reference, I'm going to be structuring this review based on how things chronologically happen in the game, so that way, if you haven't finished yet, and you don't want to get spoiled, you can just listen up until the point where you stopped. I want to be considerate because I hate spoilers. Okay, so first things first, the terrarium. For the most part, I would say it doesn't feel like anything too special or different from Paldea or Kitakami, but I will say where the terrarium earns some bonus points over those regions is in all the little details. First and foremost, the music. I was expecting some Unova fan service, but I was not expecting as much as I got with full remixes of the battle themes and whatnot. That was pretty hype and put a huge smile on my face. I personally think that Unova has the best compositions in the series. I know that Sinnoh fans will probably want to fight me on that take, but what can I say? I love Unova's music, and hearing it here was pretty cool. Chargestone Cavern also being this sprawling labyrinth underneath the map that spans multiple biomes was a cool touch. I wish there was more cool stuff like this in the actual Paldea region. I felt like the cave areas were a bit lacking in the base game. Funnily enough, I think in my Teal Mask review I said that I liked the central mountain cave the best too. I like caves. The more caves, the better. They even replicated the little static effects on the floor when you walk by the big Chargestone rocks, just like the actual Chargestone cave from Black and White. That was pretty cool. I was a little disappointed that there wasn't any way to move the big floating rocks though, like in the original cave. That is something that Scarlet and Violet feels like it's missing a lot of. Interaction with the environment. I really hope that's something they work on with Gen 10, because aside from the wild Pokemon, which is like the most baseline expectation of any Pokemon game, it just feels like there's nothing in the overworld for you to actually interact with. Which brings me to my next point, I suppose, and again, this is kind of a larger Scarlet and Violet problem, not just an Indigo disc problem, but exploration does still feel really boring. It feels very mindless, just roaming around, picking up heaps of items, chucking quick balls at every old Pokemon I see. I made the same point in the Teal Mask review, I think, but yeah, catching old Pokemon out in the wild really doesn't excite me. I just want to see all the new stuff. Even the starters, like, yeah, it's cool that they spawn in the wild, but first of all, you need like 3,000 BP per biome just to unlock them, which I'll discuss more in a second, but like, I don't know, to me, there's no value in catching the same old Pokemon again and again. Like, if I want to use Blaziken, I'm gonna transfer in my Blaziken from home. I'm not gonna grind 3,000 BP to unlock Torchic spawns and then use that one. I felt like that could have been handled just a little bit better. Anyway, on the note of BP, I sorta have a love-hate relationship with this one. We did finally get side quests in the form of the BBQs, which again is like the most basic thing that every open world game needs to have. Arceus had them. I don't know why it took this long to get them in Scarlet and Violet, but thank goodness they're finally here. However, I do have some complaints. First of all, my god are they grindy. Most of them are like the same incredibly basic tasks worth like 20 BP each. And since they infinitely regenerate, it never feels like you're really making progress towards completing anything. I would rather just be a set number of NPCs that give you side quests, and that way you can at least have the satisfaction of like truly 100%ing the game when you finish all the quests. But I guess the BBQs also give you a never-ending supply, so I don't know, it's a double-edged sword. Hey, it's future JPR here, and I just wanted to say that apparently the BBQs aren't actually that bad if you have a union circle of friends to play with, and they actually are a lot less grindy, so I just wanted to make that point. I did not know about that when I was initially recording this video, so I just wanted to make that clear. I just wish the quests rewarded you more points is all, because they definitely feel like the grindiest part of the game. At least now that Terra Shard hunting is fixed, which I am happy about. They made Terra Shards so much easier to get. You don't even have to do raids, you can just pick up like a bundle of 20 of them at any time, which is nice. But yeah, to loop back around, keep side quests around, but definitely tweak them before the next games, because I'm not 100% convinced that this was the wave. But speaking of features that I think will carry over into the next game, let's talk about the Synchro machine. To me, this very much feels like a beta for a larger feature in the next generation. Kinda like how walking with your Pokemon in the Isle of Armor evolved into the Let's Go feature in this game. I feel like this feature will probably be how Let's Go is handled going forward, where you actually have full control over your Pokemon's movements the whole time. Right now, it's kinda bare bones, you can just pick up items and auto-battle Pokemon, but it is fun just to run around with various different Pokemon and see how they all look. Like, you could absolutely book it across the map as a Toad School or ride the skateboard with Golden Go. Some Pokemon even have some cool lore-related details, like you can run on water with Suicune. I would love to see a jump button added in the next game, though, because your movement does feel kinda restricted right now. I know most Pokemon probably don't have jumping animations in this game, which is why they can't do it here, but I'm just saying, going forward, I think that's a must-have. Okay, so basic terrarium stuff covered, let's move on to the plot. I will say I really enjoyed how this DLC not just ties into the base game with Area Zero, but also has its own storyline that spans both parts with Kieran and his budding rivalry with you. That is one area where I think this DLC absolutely slays Sword and Shields. Because Isle of Armor and Crown Tundra were mostly self-contained stories that didn't add much to Galar's overall plot. Probably because Galar didn't really have one, but I digress. I also really enjoyed the Blueberry League and their all-double battle format, kinda reminiscent of Pokemon Coliseum and XD. Even if it meant that I was getting intimidated in basically every battle, after like the 4th time I was like, okay, I get it, you want people to learn VGC. But I was actually pleasantly surprised at how challenging the fights were. I actually ended up losing twice to Lacey, I think that's her name, the fairy-type girl. And after that, I was like, okay, maybe I do need an Assault Vest on my Dirge. Maybe I do need a Choice Scarf and Rock Slide on my Hisuian Arcanine. Maybe I do need to play like a sweaty VGC player. And sweat I did, quite a few times actually. I absolutely lost it when Kieran brought out his Fake Out Incineroar 2. That was the moment where I was like, okay, they have to be self-aware now. Speaking of Kieran, I enjoyed the resolution to his arc. It wasn't anything super unpredictable or anything, but it was wholesome and I liked how it played out. Drayton is definitely the best character in this DLC though, probably in the whole game honestly. I just loved his pettiness and sense of humor, awesome character. So really, in regard to the whole Blueberry League part of the plot, I give it a big thumbs up. I have no complaints. However, man, I think they missed the mark with the Area Zero stuff. And I say that because there are literally 0 new revelations to any of the mystery surrounding that place. Like, yeah, we find out that Terrapagos is the treasure and he's the reason terrestrialization exists, but literally all of us could assume that just from watching the first trailer. Stellar type being introduced is cool, the last battle against Terrapagos is cool. I just did not like any of the lore stuff surrounding it. We never find out how Paradox Pokemon came into existence, or if they're related to terrestrialization at all. It's mostly kept a mystery. And let me just say, I don't think they necessarily needed a full explanation. I actually like having some stuff in the Pokemon world stay a mystery. It makes sense that there's an extreme lack of research in these dangerous species, and we don't have all the answers yet. And they do offer some potential theories as to their origins. My only problem is, I don't really like any of the theories. Especially with what happens in the post-credits scene, which I'm going to give you a couple seconds to pause if you haven't gotten there yet. But yeah, that post-credits scene at the Crystal Pool in Kitakami with the professor, what was that about? Don't get me wrong, I think it was an extremely cool scene and probably the most unexpected thing from this DLC, but man, it makes nothing make sense. Like, did the professor come from the past, the future, a different timeline entirely? Are Paradox Pokemon even from this universe? Can Terrapagos summon people and Pokemon from the multiverse? I don't know, but my gripe is that it feels like every time Pokemon introduces one of these really neat concepts like Mega Evolution or Ultra Beasts or Paradox Pokemon, the explanation always ends up being Game Freak shrugging their shoulders and saying, multiverse, I guess. Like, I'm sorry, that's not an interesting answer. And again, they don't outright say it here, but it is somewhat implied that these Pokemon aren't just from our past or future at all, rather an entirely different world. So yeah, Area Zero and all the lore surrounding it I thought was a major letdown. And like, that's literally the title of this DLC, The Hidden Treasure of Area Zero. And Kitakami had almost nothing to do with Area Zero, aside from the Crystal Pool, which I believe also goes unexplained. And then there's like less than an hour's worth of content on Area Zero in the Indigo disc. So with that out of the way, let's discuss all the other post-credits material that's left. Yes, you can catch like 25 legendaries, I think that's how many it is, but if I'm being honest, I barely consider that content. Like, we can catch all of these legendaries in Ultra Sun, we can catch all of them in Sword and Shield, we can catch most of them in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. And in all those games, at least the legendaries weren't shiny locked. I will never understand why they shiny locked all these legendaries. That's literally just depriving shiny hunters several hundred hours of gameplay. Even if they weren't shiny locked, I would still say that I don't really enjoy these tediously long legendary quests, especially when they aren't placed at the end of an interesting dungeon. Like, I honestly couldn't care less about Articuno standing out in the middle of some random field. There are like 20 other games I can catch Articuno in that are more interesting than this. But I suppose it's the easiest way for them to add hours of content for newbies with little to no effort on their part, so I understand why they do it. But again, why shiny lock them? That part sucks. That aside, I do have to give my compliments to the new Pokemon. Hydrapple is awesome, Archaludon is cool, the Beast Paradoxes are alright, and Iron Crown and Iron Boulder, well, they exist, and they are just as uninteresting as the rest of the robots. I do think it's very strange that Iron Leaves and Walking Wake didn't get their own post-game quest, so if you missed out on the raids, I guess you're just out of luck. I know the raids are coming back soon, but still, it just seems weird. There is some very minor other content available to do in the post-game, like inviting gym leaders to the League Club and catching Stellar-type Pokemon. But honestly, if there's one major thing that this DLC is missing, it's some fun, replayable multiplayer mode like the Max Raid Adventures in the Crown Tundra. I'll even go as far to say that I think in every regard except story and battles, I think Crown Tundra probably clears this. Because even when all the story stuff is done, Crown Tundra still left you with a lot of stuff to discover, and for the most part, it was also a lot more fun than this. I would also say I felt like Crown Tundra was more of a substantial step up from the base game of Sword and Shield than this feels from the base game of Scarlet and Violet. Like, this DLC still has many of the same problems that the base game did, and I think that's what lets me down the most. I feel like I didn't see a lot of progress or improvements made on their open world design aside from very basic side quests. I mean, the game still turns into a PowerPoint presentation anytime there's a puddle of water on screen. Like, that just shouldn't be happening a full year after launch. That's not to say that I didn't enjoy the actual content of this DLC, it just left me feeling a little underwhelmed when it was all over. It almost feels like they're just waving a bunch of Unova content in front of us so that we'll get excited for more Unova stuff in the future and kind of forget about Scarlet and Violet. Maybe that's not true, but it's just the vibe I'm getting. I wouldn't say it's a bad send-off to Scarlet and Violet, I would just say it felt like a Scarlet and Violet send-off to Scarlet and Violet. Very basic, very predictable, very comparable to the Sword and Shield DLC. It's not gonna knock your socks off, but you will get a good 10 hours of entertainment from it, maybe. But hey, that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a very happy holiday season. Thank you guys for all the support this year, it means a ton to me, and I'll see you guys next time.